There are truths in life that no one teaches you. Not your parents, not your teachers, not the books lined up on shelves promising transformation. These truths reveal themselves only through pain, through silence, through the slow erosion of illusions you once held sacred. Most people spend their entire lives running from these truths. They fill their days with noise, their minds with distractions, their hearts with people who were never meant to stay. And when the silence finally comes, when they're left alone with the weight of their choices, they realize something terrifying. They never learned how to live. Today we speak of 7 laws, not theories, not suggestions, laws, principles carved into the architecture of human nature itself. Break them, and you will suffer. Honor them, and you will become unbreakable. Let us begin. Law 1. Once you feel someone avoids you, never disturb them again. There is a particular kind of pain that comes from chasing someone who is walking away. Not the sharp pain of rejection, something quieter, something that hollows you out from the inside. It's the pain of self-betrayal. You feel it first as intuition, a message left unread for days, plans canceled with vague excuses. Energy that once flowed freely between you now meets resistance, like pushing against a door that someone on the other side is quietly holding shut. Most people ignore this feeling. They tell themselves stories. They're just busy. They're going through something. If I just reach out one more time, things will go back to normal. But deep down, beneath the stories, they know the truth. They simply refuse to accept it. Let me tell you about a woman I once knew. Intelligent, accomplished, respected in her field. She had a friend, someone she considered close, someone she'd known for years. Then slowly, imperceptibly at first, the distance grew. Phone calls went to voicemail, invitations were met with excuses. The warmth that once existed between them cooled into something formal, something polite. And instead of accepting this change, instead of honoring what was becoming clear, she fought against it. She sent longer messages. She offered more of her time. She bent herself into shapes that felt increasingly unnatural, all in service of keeping alive something that had already died. 6 months of this. 6 months of small humiliations, of hope followed by disappointment, of giving energy to someone who had already decided she didn't want to receive it. Until one day, exhausted and depleted, she stopped. And in that stopping, she found something unexpected. Peace. The moment you feel someone pulling away, you face a choice. Not a choice between fighting for the relationship or giving up. A choice between honoring yourself or abandoning yourself. Between dignity and desperation. Here is what most people fail to understand. When someone avoids you, when they create distance, when they pull back their energy, they are giving you information. Crystal clear information. They are showing you, through their actions, that they do not want what you are offering. They do not want your presence in their life in the way you are offering it. This is not cruelty. It is communication. But most people refuse to listen to actions. They listen only to words, to past promises, to who someone used to be rather than who they are now. And in this refusal to see reality, they sacrifice something sacred, their self-respect. Chasing someone who is avoiding you is not love. It is not loyalty. It is self-abandonment dressed up in noble language. It is the act of valuing someone else's presence more than your own peace, their validation more than your own worth. Consider this carefully. Every moment you spend pursuing someone who is withdrawing is a moment you are teaching yourself a dangerous lesson. You are teaching yourself that you are not enough on your own, that your value depends on their acceptance, that you must diminish yourself to earn a place in someone else's life. The universe operates on reciprocity. Energy given must be matched by energy received, or the system falls out of balance. When you continue giving to someone who has stopped receiving, you create a vacuum. And that vacuum doesn't just drain your energy. It drains your dignity, your self-worth, your ability to recognize when you are being disrespected. There is an old principle in psychology. Intermittent reinforcement creates the strongest addiction. When someone is inconsistent, when they give you attention occasionally, but withdraw it unpredictably, your mind becomes obsessed with winning back that attention. You become addicted to the chase, not to the person. You are pursuing the idea of resolution, the fantasy of return to how things were, not the reality of who they are now. Let them go. Not with bitterness, not with anger, not with the dramatic announcement of your departure. Simply let them go. Stop sending the messages. Stop making the excuses for them. Stop creating opportunities for them to reject you again and again in small, polite ways. When you release someone who has already released you, you reclaim something far more valuable than their friendship. You reclaim your power. The power to choose who deserves access to you. The power to walk away from situations that diminish you. The power to sit in silence and know that your worth is not determined by who chooses to stay. Here's the truth they don't tell you. The moment you stop chasing, one of two things happens. Either they notice your absence and reach out, revealing that the distance was a test or a temporary state, or they don't reach out at all, confirming what you already knew but didn't want to accept. Both outcomes are valuable. Both outcomes give you clarity, and clarity, even painful clarity, is always better than the fog of false hope. The person who can walk away from those who do not want them is the person who will eventually attract those who do, because they carry themselves with the quiet confidence of someone who knows their worth. They are not desperate. They are not grasping. They are simply present, fully present, for those who have the wisdom to appreciate that presence. When someone shows you they do not want you in their life, believe them the first time. Your dignity depends on it. Law 2. Never marry out of love. Marry when you're ready. This law will disturb you. It should, because it contradicts everything you've been taught about romance, about destiny, about finding the one. We are raised on fairy tales, stories that tell us love conquers all, that if you feel strongly enough about someone, the rest will work itself out, that passion and commitment are the same thing, that emotional intensity equals compatibility. These stories have destroyed more lives than they've saved. A man I knew fell deeply in love at 23. The kind of love that poets write about, that makes you forget to eat, that colors every moment with significance. She was beautiful, magnetic, unpredictable. He felt alive in her presence in a way he'd never felt before. They married within a year. He was certain, absolutely certain, that this feeling was enough, that love would be the foundation for everything else they would build. 3 years later, they were divorced. Not because the love had died. That was the tragedy. The love was still there, burning in the wreckage of a life they had tried and failed to build together. But love alone cannot raise children on incompatible values. Love alone cannot bridge the gap between two people who want fundamentally different futures. Love alone cannot heal two people who have never learned to be whole on their own. He loved her. He still loves her. But he was not ready to be married. Not to her. Not to anyone. And she was not ready either. Two people drowning cannot save each other, no matter how tightly they hold on. Listen carefully to what I am about to tell you. Marriage is not the graduation ceremony of a successful romance. It is the beginning of the most difficult collaboration two human beings can undertake. It is a strategic partnership, a merger of two complex lives, a commitment to build something that requires far more than emotion. It requires stability, maturity, self-knowledge, financial literacy, emotional regulation, conflict resolution skills, shared values, compatible visions for the future, the ability to weather boredom, sickness, disappointment, loss. Love is the spark. But you cannot build a house with sparks. You need bricks, mortar, a solid foundation. You need tools and knowledge and patience. You need two people who have done the individual work of becoming ready for what marriage actually demands. Most people marry to escape loneliness, to validate their worth, to fulfill a societal expectation, to capture and preserve a feeling they're afraid of losing. They marry someone they love without asking the more important question: am I ready to be married? Because being in love is easy. Staying married is one of the hardest things you will ever do. And if you enter that commitment before you're ready, you don't just risk hurting yourself. You risk damaging another human being, and potentially children, in the process of your unpreparedness. Consider the statistics. More than half of marriages end in divorce. But the statistic that matters more is this. The majority of those divorces occur not because love ended, but because two people entered a contract they weren't equipped to fulfill. They brought unhealed trauma, unrealistic expectations, financial chaos, and emotional immaturity to a partnership that requires the opposite of all these things. What does readiness look like? It means you know yourself. You have done the painful work of examining your patterns, your wounds, your triggers. You have learned to sit with discomfort without projecting it onto someone else. You have built a life that stands on its own, that doesn't need another person to give it meaning. It means you have learned to be alone without being lonely, to find peace in your own company, to create joy and purpose independently. Because only when you are whole on your own can you join with another whole person to create something greater. It means you have financial stability, not wealth, stability. You understand how to manage money, to plan for the future, to navigate the practical realities of building a life together. Money doesn't buy happiness, but financial chaos destroys trust faster than almost anything else. It means your values are clear and non-negotiable. You know what you stand for, what kind of life you want to build, how you want to raise children, if you want them at all. And you have found someone whose values align with yours, not someone you hope to change or convince. It means you have learned to communicate, to listen without defending, to express needs without attacking, to navigate conflict without destroying trust. These are skills, not talents. They must be developed before you enter a partnership that will test them constantly. And perhaps most importantly, it means you understand that marriage is not about feelings. Feelings are fickle, fluctuating, unreliable guides for major life decisions. Marriage is about commitment. It's about choosing every single day to honor a promise you made. Some days that choice will feel easy. Many days it will not. Readiness means understanding this and choosing commitment anyway. Here is the paradox. When you marry out of love alone, when you let emotion override readiness, you often destroy the very love you were trying to preserve. Because love, real love, cannot survive in the soil of unreadiness. It withers under the weight of expectations it was never meant to carry. But when you marry from a place of readiness, when two prepared people come together with clear eyes and mature hearts, love has room to deepen. It transforms from the intoxicating fever of early romance into something stronger, something that can bear the weight of life's inevitable difficulties. Do not misunderstand this law. It is not saying love doesn't matter. Love matters immensely. But love is not enough. You need love and readiness, passion and preparation, heart and strategy. Wait, not for the perfect person, because that person doesn't exist. Wait until you have become the person ready to meet someone else's readiness with your own. Wait until you can offer not just your heart, but your wisdom, your stability, your mature capacity for partnership. The right person at the wrong time is still the wrong person. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is recognize that you're not ready, even if you desperately wish you were. Even if walking away from someone you love feels like tearing yourself in half. Love is not a reason to marry. Readiness is. When both exist together, you have found something worth building a life around. Law 3. Never give a broken relationship a second chance. There is a story you tell yourself when a relationship ends badly. You tell yourself it was a misunderstanding, that both of you could have tried harder, that the problems were situational, not fundamental, that if you could just go back with what you know now, everything would be different. This story is a lie, but it is a seductive lie, because it allows you to avoid accepting the hardest truth of all. That relationship ended for a reason, and that reason still exists. A colleague of mine, brilliant in his work but naive in matters of the heart, dated a woman for 2 years. The relationship was volatile, arguments that lasted for days, accusations, broken promises, a cycle of intensity and withdrawal that left both of them exhausted. Finally, it ended. Badly. Words were said that couldn't be unsaid. Doors were slammed. Months of silence followed. And then, as often happens, the pain faded. Memory, that unreliable narrator, began to rewrite the story. The good moments grew brighter. The bad moments lost their edge. He started to wonder. Maybe we gave up too easily. Maybe it wasn't as bad as I remember. Maybe she's changed. Maybe I've changed. They met for coffee. The old chemistry was still there, sparking like exposed wires. Within weeks, they were back together. And for a month, maybe two, it felt like proof that second chances work. That love can overcome. That time apart had healed what needed healing. But the patterns returned. Different circumstances, same fundamental dynamics, the same arguments wearing slightly different clothes, the same wounds, reopened with surgical precision. The same realization, arriving again like a bill you thought you'd already paid. This doesn't work. We don't work. The second ending was worse than the first, because now it carried not just loss, but humiliation. The shame of having ignored obvious warning signs. The anger at having wasted more time on something that was already proven broken. The grief of mourning the same relationship twice. Listen to this carefully. When a relationship ends due to fundamental incompatibility, abuse, betrayal, or persistent patterns of dysfunction, the ending is information. It is data. It is reality trying to teach you something crucial. And when you go back to that relationship, you are rejecting reality in favor of fantasy. People tell themselves, but we know what went wrong now. We've both grown. It'll be different this time. But growth means learning from your mistakes. And one of the most important lessons you can learn is recognizing when something is not meant to be repaired. Here is the truth about broken relationships. The same fractures exist in the foundation. You can renovate the surface, add new paint, rearrange the furniture. But the cracks remain. And under pressure, the structure will fail in the same places it failed before. This is not cynicism. This is pattern recognition. Humans are creatures of habit. We fall into grooves of behavior carved by years of conditioning. We react to stress in predictable ways. We bring the same fears, the same defenses, the same unhealed wounds to every interaction. When two people who have already proven they cannot maintain a healthy relationship get back together, they bring all of this history with them. Every past argument is a ghost in the room. Every old wound is a trigger waiting to be pulled. Trust, once broken, leaves scar tissue. And scar tissue is never as strong as the original. Consider what has to be true for a second chance to work. Both people would need to have fundamentally changed. Not surface-level change, deep structural change. They would need to have addressed the core issues that destroyed the relationship the first time, individually, with professional help, most likely, over significant time. And even if both people have done this impossible work, even if they have both genuinely transformed, there's still a problem. They have to be together in a relationship that is haunted by its own past. Every conflict will carry echoes of old conflicts. Every disappointment will resurrect old disappointments. The relationship started as one thing, died as another, and now must be resurrected as something entirely new, while carrying all the memory of what it was. This is not a recipe for success. This is a recipe for prolonged suffering. But the real damage of second chances goes deeper than just wasting more time. Every moment you spend trying to revive something that has already died is a moment you could have spent building something new with someone who doesn't carry the baggage of past betrayals. Someone with whom you can start from a foundation of trust, rather than trying to rebuild trust on top of ruins. The opportunity cost is staggering. While you're cycling through the same painful patterns with the same person, you're missing the chance to meet someone with whom those patterns don't exist. Someone with whom compatibility doesn't require constant effort. Someone who brings out better versions of you, not recycled versions of old conflicts. There is also the matter of respect. When you take back someone who hurt you, when you return to something that was proven toxic or incompatible, you teach them something dangerous. That your boundaries are negotiable. That your words don't match your actions. That you can be hurt, discarded, and then welcomed back, which means the cost of hurting you is lower than they thought. This doesn't just damage that relationship. It damages your relationship with yourself. It erodes your self-trust. It teaches you that your instincts, your pain, your clear-eyed assessment of what isn't working, all of these can be overridden by loneliness, by nostalgia, by the fear of starting over. Starting over is terrifying. This is why people cling to broken relationships. The known misery feels safer than the unknown possibility. The familiar pain feels more comfortable than the uncertainty of healing and trying again with someone new. But this is cowardice masquerading as loyalty. This is fear masquerading as love. Some people will argue, but what about couples who break up and get back together and make it work? These are the exceptions, not the rule. And even in these rare cases, the successful reconciliations typically involve separations that were not due to fundamental incompatibility or abuse, but to external circumstances, timing issues, or problems that both parties addressed completely and independently during the separation. If your relationship ended because of betrayal, if it ended because of abuse, if it ended because of irreconcilable differences in values or life goals, if it ended because the patterns were toxic, there is no second chance worth taking. The past is not a rough draft. It is a finished book. Close it. Put it on the shelf. Begin writing a new one. A relationship that required an ending was giving you information. Honor that information. The strongest thing you can do is not go back to what broke you, but move forward toward what might heal you. Law 4. Never fall in love with the same person twice. This law speaks to something more subtle, more psychologically complex than the previous one. It addresses not just the act of returning to a relationship, but the trap of carrying someone with you long after they're gone. There is a particular kind of prison that people build for themselves. It has no bars, no locks, no walls you can see. But it is perhaps the most secure prison ever designed. It is the prison of comparison. The prison of living in the past. The prison of falling in love over and over again with the memory of someone who no longer exists. I watched a friend do this for years. She had loved someone deeply in her 20s. The relationship ended, circumstances pulling them apart before either was ready. She moved on, or so she thought. She dated other people. Some of those people were kind, attractive, compatible on paper, but none of them were him. She didn't go back to him. She understood the relationship couldn't be resurrected, but she never truly left him either. He became the standard against which everyone else was measured. The ghost she compared every new person to. The memory that made every new beginning feel like a pale imitation of something richer, deeper, more real. What she didn't realize, what took her years to understand, was that she wasn't in love with him. She was in love with her memory of him, with the version of him that existed in her mind, polished by nostalgia, freed from the complications and disappointments of reality, with the idea of what they could have been, which is always more perfect than what they were. This is the trap. When you fall in love with someone and lose them, if you don't properly let go, you don't just remember them, you idealize them, you elevate them, you transform them in your memory into something they never were. And then you spend years, sometimes decades, in love with this phantom. The person you remember is not the person who actually existed. Memory is not a camera. It is an artist, and it paints in the colors of your emotional state. When you're lonely, when you're disappointed by new relationships, memory makes the past look golden. It softens the rough edges. It amplifies the good moments and fades the bad ones. You remember the laughter, but forget the arguments. You remember the connection, but forget the incompatibilities. You remember who they were on their best days, and forget who they were on average days. You fall in love again and again with a fiction. Here is the danger. As long as you remain in love with a memory, you cannot fully invest in a present reality. Every new person you meet is competing not with a real human being, with flaws and complications and bad moods, but with a perfected memory. They are competing with a ghost. And ghosts are unbeatable opponents because they never disappoint, never age, never reveal new flaws. This creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. You meet someone new. Perhaps they have real potential, but you're not truly available. part of you is still in the past, still comparing, still measuring this new person against someone who has been transformed by memory into an impossible standard. And because they can never measure up to a fantasy, you pull back, you protect yourself, you keep one foot out the door. The relationship struggles. Not because the person isn't right, but because you're not fully there. And when it ends, as it likely will, you tell yourself, "See? They weren't as good as what I had before." And the cycle continues. The memory grows stronger. The ghost becomes more real than any living person. There is also a more insidious version of this law. Some people do return to the actual person, not in reality, but in pattern. They find someone new who reminds them of the old person. Similar personality, similar looks, similar dynamics. They think they're moving forward, but they're actually recreating the past. This is not love, this is compulsion. It's the psychological equivalent of pressing on a bruise, of returning again and again to the site of old pain, trying to achieve a different outcome through repetition. It never works, because you cannot heal from something by recreating it. You can only heal by moving beyond it. The psychological mechanism at work here is called repetition compulsion. It's a defense mechanism where people repeat traumatic or painful experiences, unconsciously attempting to master them. But in romantic contexts, this rarely leads to mastery. It leads to the same patterns, the same pain, wrapped in different packaging. You might think you've fallen in love with someone new, but if you examine closely, you'll see you've fallen in love with the same feeling, the same dynamic, the same unresolved longing from your past. You're not experiencing something new. You're experiencing something familiar. And familiar, in matters of the heart, is often just another word for unhealed. Here is what you must understand. Every moment you spend in love with someone from your past, whether the actual person or their memory, is a moment you are not available for something real in the present. It is a moment you are choosing phantom over flesh, fantasy over reality, safety over possibility. To truly move forward requires something brutal. You must kill the version of them that lives in your head. You must take that idealized memory and force yourself to see it clearly. Remember not just the good, but the bad. Not just the chemistry, but the incompatibilities. Not just what you lost, but why you lost it. You must grieve them completely. Not half grieve while keeping them alive in your heart as a benchmark for future love. Actually grieve. Feel the loss. Sit with the pain. Accept that what you had is gone and cannot be recreated or replaced because it was unique to a specific time, a specific version of you, a specific context that no longer exists. And then, and this is the hardest part, you must release them. Not with anger, not with bitterness, but with acceptance, with gratitude for what was, and with clear-eyed recognition that it's over, that they are not coming back, that even if they did come back, they would not be the person you remember, that you are not the person who loved them then. Only when you do this can you become truly available for something new. Not a recreation, not a comparison, but something entirely its own, with its own flavor, its own chemistry, its own set of joys and complications. The person who can do this, who can love completely and then let go completely, is the person who can love again without the shadow of the past darkening the present. They bring their full self to new connections. They don't compare, they don't hold back. They don't test new love against old love because they understand these are fundamentally different experiences, incomparable, each valuable in its own right. The past is not a person. It is a story you keep telling yourself. And as long as you keep telling that story, you cannot write a new one. Close the book. Walk away from the library of what was. The greatest love of your life might be waiting for you, but you'll never notice them while you're staring at ghosts. Law 5. Being alone is more at peace than being surrounded by people who make you feel alone. There are two kinds of loneliness. The first is the loneliness of solitude, the physical absence of people, empty rooms, silent phones, meals eaten alone. This loneliness is obvious. It announces itself. It can be measured in the number of hours spent without company. But there is a second kind of loneliness, deeper, more painful, more destructive. It is the loneliness of being surrounded by people and feeling utterly isolated, of sitting in a room full of conversation while screaming silently inside, of being with someone who is supposed to know you and feeling completely unseen. This second loneliness is worse than solitude. Because solitude is honest. It doesn't pretend to be something it's not. But this loneliness wears a mask. It looks like connection from the outside. It looks like you're doing everything right, surrounding yourself with people, maintaining relationships, showing up. But inside, you are drowning. I know a woman who was married for 15 years. From the outside, her life looked full. A husband, 2 children, friends, social obligations, constant activity. She was rarely physically alone. Her days were filled with people who needed her, talked at her, made demands of her time and energy. But she was profoundly lonely. More lonely, she later realized, than she had been in her early 20s when she lived alone in a small apartment in a city where she knew no one. Because at least then, the loneliness had a clear cause and a clear solution. Meet people, build connections, create community. But how do you solve loneliness when you're already surrounded by people? When the problem isn't absence but presence of the wrong kind? When your loneliness exists not despite your relationships but because of them? Her husband was there but not present. He talked but didn't listen. He heard her words but never grasped their meaning. She could tell him about her day, her fears, her dreams, and watch his eyes glaze over, watch him nod while clearly thinking about something else. The conversation had the form of intimacy, but none of its substance. Her friendships were the same, surface level, performative, everyone playing their assigned roles in a social script that required no one to be truly vulnerable, truly honest, truly seen. They talked about safe topics. They performed interest in each other's lives, but there was no depth, no real understanding, no sense that these people knew her or wanted to know her. She was surrounded by people who made her feel alone. And this kind of loneliness, this kind that exists in the presence of others, is uniquely soul-crushing because it comes with an additional burden, the feeling that something is wrong with you, that you should be grateful, that you have what everyone says you're supposed to want, companionship, family, community, and you still feel empty, which must mean the problem is you. Here is what most people don't understand. It is better to be physically alone than to be with people who don't really see you. Because solitude is a clean pain. It's honest. Your loneliness has a name and a clear cause. You are alone because you are alone. But when you're lonely in a crowd, when you're lonely in a relationship, when you're lonely surrounded by people who are supposed to care about you, the pain is muddied. You don't know what's wrong. You can't articulate why you feel so empty when your life looks so full. And this confusion, this inability to name the problem, makes the problem impossible to solve. Solitude teaches you something valuable. It teaches you that you can survive with just yourself, that your own company is not something to be feared or fled from, that there is a difference between being alone and being lonely. And once you learn this, once you discover that you can sit in silence and not be terrified by it, you gain a kind of power. You become selective. You stop filling your life with people just to avoid emptiness. You stop maintaining relationships that drain you because at least there's something. You stop tolerating half presence, half listening, half caring. You raise your standards for what kind of company you're willing to keep. Because you've learned the secret. No company is better than bad company. Solitude is better than fake connection. Peace alone is better than performance with others. Consider what happens when you stay in relationships that make you feel lonely. You learn to accept less than you deserve. You teach yourself that your need for genuine connection is unrealistic, that deep understanding is too much to ask for, that you should be grateful for surface-level interaction, because that's all anyone offers. You learn to suppress yourself, to make yourself smaller, quieter, less complicated, in hopes that if you're easier to deal with, people might actually deal with you. You edit your thoughts, your feelings, your authentic reactions. You perform a version of yourself that you think will be more palatable. And in doing this, you guarantee the very loneliness you're trying to escape. because the version of yourself that you're performing isn't real. So even when people respond to it positively, you remain unseen. You're getting attention, maybe even affection. But it's not for you. It's for the character you're playing. This is the trap. You surround yourself with people to escape loneliness. But because you're not being authentic, the loneliness persists. So you conclude that even more people are needed, more activity, more social interaction. But more of the wrong thing never becomes the right thing. You just become more exhausted performing for a larger audience. Meanwhile, the person who has learned to be alone, truly alone, has discovered something else. They've discovered themselves. Not the performed version, the real version, the one that emerges in silence, in solitude, in the absence of anyone to perform for. They know what they actually think, not what they're supposed to think. They know what they actually feel, not what will make others comfortable. They know who they are when no one is watching, which is the only version of yourself that matters. And from this place of self-knowledge, they can build real connections, because they're not looking for anyone to complete them, to validate them, to fill some void. They're looking for people who can meet them in their wholeness, people who are interested in the real version, not the performed version. People whose presence adds to their life rather than requiring them to subtract from themselves. These connections are rare, but they're worth waiting for. They're worth being alone for, because one real friendship is worth more than a dozen surface-level ones. One genuine relationship is worth more than years of performing intimacy with someone who doesn't truly see you. Here is the brutal truth. Most people will never know you. Most people will never want to know you. Not really. They want the version of you that makes them comfortable, that plays the role they've assigned you, that asks nothing of them that they're not already willing to give. This is not malice. This is limitation. Most people are too preoccupied with their own performance to be present for yours. Too caught up in their own unexpressed loneliness to recognize yours. Too defended against their own pain to hold space for yours. And when you realize this, when you stop expecting depth from people who can only offer surface, when you stop trying to force connection where none exists naturally, something shifts. You become okay with solitude. Not just okay. You begin to prefer it to the alternative. You begin to protect your peace, your energy, your time. You begin to see these as precious resources, not to be wasted on people who don't value them. You become comfortable saying no, comfortable letting relationships fade, comfortable with the empty spaces in your social calendar. And in that comfort with solitude, you become magnetic in a different way. You stop radiating need, stop grasping for connection. You become someone who is already whole, already at peace, open to connection, but not desperate for it. This is when real connection finds you, because like attracts like. Whole people attract whole people. The person who is comfortable alone attracts others who are comfortable alone. And when two such people connect, they create something rare. A relationship built on choice, not need. On genuine interest, not fear of solitude. On mutual respect for each other's wholeness, not desperate attempts to fill each other's voids. Peace is not found in the number of people around you. It's found in the quality of presence they bring. And if that presence makes you feel more alone than actual solitude does, you're in the wrong company. Choose the peace of your own company over the performance of belonging. Choose real over frequent. Choose depth over breadth. Choose yourself, always, over those who choose not to truly see you. Law 6. If you never heal from what hurt you, you will bleed on people who don't deserve it. Human beings are meaning-making machines. We take our experiences, especially our painful experiences, and we create stories about what they mean. Stories about ourselves. Stories about others. Stories about how the world works. And these stories don't stay in our heads. They seep into everything we do, every relationship we enter, every decision we make, every reaction we have. Unhealed pain doesn't simply exist in the past. It projects itself onto the present, onto people who had nothing to do with the original wound. A man I'll call David learned this the hard way. His father abandoned the family when David was 7. Left without explanation, without support, without looking back. David's mother told him it wasn't his fault, but children don't think logically. They think causally. Something bad happened, so they must have caused it. David grew up carrying an invisible wound, a deep, unexamined belief that he was not worthy of staying for, that people he loved would eventually leave. That abandonment was inevitable, just a matter of time. He never dealt with this wound, never sat with the pain of it, never questioned the story he'd created. He simply carried it into adulthood, where it waited like a landmine for anyone who got close to him. His first serious relationship was with a woman who loved him genuinely. She was patient, kind, consistent. But David couldn't see this. What he saw was a threat, because the more she loved him, the more certain he became that she would leave. His wound told him this was how it worked. People leave, and the more you care, the more it hurts when they do. So he pushed her away, not consciously, not deliberately, but he picked fights over nothing, accused her of things she hadn't done, withdrew when she got too close, tested her constantly, waiting for her to prove what he already knew, that she would leave. And eventually, exhausted by his suspicion and volatility, she did leave. Not because she wanted to, not because she stopped loving him, but because she couldn't continue bleeding from wounds he kept reopening, wounds she hadn't caused. David felt vindicated. "See," his wound whispered, "everyone leaves. You were right to protect yourself." But he wasn't protecting himself. He was destroying the very thing he wanted most, because he never healed the thing that hurt him first. This is how unhealed pain works. It doesn't stay contained. It doesn't remain a private matter between you and your past. It leaks, it spills, it contaminates everything it touches. And the cruelty of it is that it most damages the people who are least deserving of that damage. The people who hurt you, they're gone. They're living their lives, unaffected by your continued suffering. The only people who experience the consequences of your unhealed wounds are the people who come after them, the ones who are trying to love you, the ones who have done nothing wrong except arrive after the damage was done. Your wounds create patterns, patterns of defense, patterns of perception, patterns of reaction, and these patterns run automatically, beneath conscious awareness, triggered by anything that even remotely resembles the original injury. Someone takes a few hours to text back, and you spiral into abandonment panic, because your wound tells you silence means rejection. Someone disagrees with you, and you experience it as an attack, because your wound tells you conflict means you're not loved. Someone asks for space, and you cling tighter, because your wound tells you distance is the beginning of loss. None of these reactions are about the present situation. They're about the past, projected onto the present. The person in front of you is not the person who hurt you, but your wound doesn't distinguish. It only knows protection, and its strategy for protection is to treat everyone as a potential threat. This is what it means to bleed on people. You take your pain and you transfer it. You make them pay for crimes they didn't commit. You punish them for someone else's sins. You withhold trust they've done nothing to lose. You create problems that don't exist because your wound needs to prepare for problems it believes are inevitable. And the tragedy is that this behavior often creates the very outcome your wound fears most. You're so afraid of abandonment that you become controlling, suspicious, demanding, and you drive people away. You're so afraid of betrayal that you never fully trust anyone, and your withholding prevents the deep connection that would make betrayal unlikely. You're so afraid of being hurt that you hurt first, and you destroy relationships before they have a chance to disprove your fears. This is called a self-fulfilling prophecy. Your unhealed wound creates a belief. That belief creates a behavior. That behavior creates a result, and that result confirms the original belief. The wound feeds itself, grows stronger, becomes more convinced of its own truth. But here is what you must understand. Healing is not optional if you want healthy relationships. It's not something you can skip or postpone or work around. Your wounds will not politely wait in the background. while you try to build something beautiful with someone new. They will intrude. They will sabotage. They will recreate the past until you face them directly. What does healing look like? It starts with recognition. You must become aware of your wounds, not just intellectually aware, deeply, viscerally aware. You must be able to identify when they're running the show, when your reactions are disproportionate to the present situation, when you're responding to ghosts rather than to the person in front of you. This requires brutal honesty. It requires you to stop blaming your behavior on others and start examining your patterns. When 3 different relationships end for similar reasons, the problem isn't 3 different people. The problem is you, your wound, your unhealed pain creating the same dynamics with different actors. It requires sitting with pain rather than running from it. Most people avoid their wounds because confronting them is excruciating. It means feeling everything you've been trying not to feel: grief, anger, shame, fear, the full weight of what was done to you, what was taken from you, what you lost. But this pain, as terrible as it is finite. It has a bottom. If you allow yourself to feel it completely, if you stop running and let it wash over you, it eventually passes. It transforms. It loses its power over you. But if you keep running, if you keep suppressing it, it stays fresh. It stays potent. It continues to control you from the shadows. Healing also requires rewriting the story. You must examine the beliefs your wound created and question them. Are they true? Are they universally true? Are they true about this person in front of you, or only about the person who hurt you originally? Your father left. This is a fact. But the story you created, that you're unworthy of staying for, that's not a fact. That's an interpretation, a child's interpretation. And now you're an adult, and you can create a different interpretation. Your father left because of his own limitations, his own pain, his own unhealed wounds. It had nothing to do with your worth. This rewriting isn't about positive thinking or affirmations. It's about truth, about separating fact from interpretation, about recognizing that the story you've been carrying isn't objective reality, but one possible explanation among many. And finally, healing requires time and often professional help. Wounds that were created over years don't disappear in weeks. They require patience, repeated practice of new patterns, compassion for yourself when you slip back into old ones. And many wounds are too deep, too complex to heal alone. Therapy isn't a sign of weakness. It's a recognition that some work requires guidance. But here's what happens when you do this work. When you commit to healing rather than continuing to bleed. You break the cycle. You stop passing your pain forward. You become capable of receiving love without suspicion, of handling conflict without catastrophizing, of being present in relationships without constantly bracing for abandonment. You become safe for others, not perfect, not without your struggles, but aware of them, managing them, taking responsibility for them rather than expecting others to accommodate them. And this safety, this emotional maturity, is one of the most attractive qualities a person can possess. Healed people attract healed people. Conscious people attract conscious people. When you do your work, you raise the quality of people you attract and the quality of relationships you can build. More importantly, you stop creating victims, because that's what happens when you bleed on others. You victimize them, not in the dramatic sense of abuse necessarily, but in the sense of making them suffer for something they didn't cause. And when you heal, when you take responsibility for your wounds rather than projecting them outward, you stop this cycle. You break generational patterns. You refuse to pass trauma forward. You become the person who says, "This pain stops with me. I will feel it. I will process it. I will heal it. But I will not make it someone else's problem." This is one of the most powerful things a human being can do, to take pain that was inflicted on you and refuse to inflict it on others, to absorb the blow and not pass it forward, to be the circuit breaker in a long chain of transferred suffering. Your wounds are not your fault, but they are your responsibility. No one can heal them for you. No one deserves to be punished for them except the people who created them. And even they are unreachable in the past. The only question is, will you do the work or will you continue to make innocent people pay for old debts? The answer to this question determines not just the quality of your relationships, but the quality of your character. Law 7. The most stupid mistake in life is thinking the one who hurt you won't hurt you again. Human beings have an extraordinary capacity for hope, for forgiveness, for believing in the possibility of change. These are beautiful qualities. They make love possible. They make redemption possible. They make second chances meaningful. But these same qualities, when misapplied, become our greatest vulnerabilities. Because there is a difference between hope and delusion, between forgiveness and self-abandonment, between believing in change and ignoring evidence. The most stupid mistake you can make is this: believing that someone who has demonstrated their willingness to hurt you will somehow, for reasons you can't quite articulate, choose not to hurt you again. Despite no real evidence of change, despite patterns that repeat, despite warning signs that are identical to the ones you ignored before. This isn't love. This isn't loyalty. This isn't faith in human potential. This is denial in its most seductive form. I knew a woman, intelligent and accomplished, who dated a man for 3 years. In those 3 years, he cheated on her 4 times that she knew of. Each time there was a crisis. Tears, promises, explanations that almost made sense. He was stressed. He was drunk. It meant nothing. It would never happen again. And each time she believed him. Not because the evidence supported belief, but because the alternative, accepting that this was who he was, meant she would have to leave. And leaving felt harder than staying. The 4th time she discovered his infidelity, something shifted. Not in him, in her. She realized she had been waiting for him to change into someone he had never been. Someone faithful. Someone whose words matched his actions. Someone who valued her enough to not destroy her trust repeatedly. She had been in love with potential, with the person he could be if only he chose to be different. But potential is not reality, and choosing to stay with someone's potential while ignoring their demonstrated behavior is choosing fantasy over truth. Here is the psychological trap. When someone hurts you and then apologizes, when they show remorse and promise change, your brain wants desperately to believe them. Because if they're telling the truth, you can keep what you have. You don't have to face loss. You don't have to start over. You don't have to be alone. So your brain performs extraordinary mental gymnastics to justify giving them another chance. It focuses on their words, their tears, their stated intentions. It downplays their actions. It creates narratives about stress, about circumstances, about how this time is different. But behavior is the only truth that matters. Not words, not promises, not intentions, behavior. What someone actually does, repeatedly, when facing the same choices and same circumstances. And if the behavior pattern is clear, if someone has shown you multiple times who they are when their interests conflict with yours, when their impulses conflict with their promises, when their comfort conflicts with your pain, then you already know what will happen next time that conflict arises. They will hurt you again, not because they're evil, not because they don't care at all, but because the internal factors that led to the first betrayal, the lack of impulse control, the prioritizing of short-term gratification over long-term commitment, the fundamental selfishness, these factors haven't changed. And if the factors haven't changed, the outcome won't change. People often confuse remorse for change. Someone feels terrible after hurting you. They genuinely regret it. They can see the pain they've caused. This feels like progress. This feels like transformation. But remorse is not change. Remorse is an emotional response to consequences. It's feeling bad about what happened. Change is different. Change is doing the deep psychological work to understand why it happened, what internal factors made it possible, and then systematically addressing those factors over time with professional help and sustained effort. Real change takes months, often years. It's not dramatic. It's not announced with grand gestures. It's quiet, consistent, unsexy work. It's therapy. It's examining patterns. It's building new neural pathways. It's proving through sustained behavior, not through words, that something fundamental has shifted. Most people who hurt you will not do this work. They will feel bad. They will promise better. They will have every intention of being different. But intentions without systematic change are meaningless. Consider the logic of staying with someone who has hurt you badly. The implicit bet you're making is this: this time will be different because I want it to be different. Because they say it will be different. Because I can't imagine leaving. But wanting something doesn't make it true. Saying something doesn't make it real. And your inability to imagine leaving is not evidence that staying is wise. It's evidence that you're more afraid of the short-term pain of ending things than you are respectful of the long-term pattern of being hurt. There is also the matter of what you teach someone when you take them back after they've hurt you significantly. You teach them that your boundaries are negotiable, that your pain has a tolerance threshold, that the cost of hurting you is not actually that high, just some temporary discomfort and a convincing apology. This is especially true in cases of infidelity, abuse, or chronic lying. These are not mistakes, these are choices. Choices that required multiple other choices to execute. Choices that involved deceiving you, disrespecting you, prioritizing something else over your well-being. When someone makes these choices once and you forgive them, they learn something about your boundaries. When they make these choices again and you stay, they learn something definitive. They can hurt you and keep you. The consequences aren't real. Your words don't match your actions. Your boundaries are performances, not protections. And once they learn this, the dynamic is set. Not consciously, perhaps, but behaviorally. They know how much they can get away with. They know you'll stay. They know your threats are empty. And this knowledge, even if it sits beneath conscious awareness, shapes their future choices. This doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. You're doing what humans do when they love someone. You're giving chances. You're believing in redemption. You're hoping for the best. But at some point, hope divorced from evidence becomes complicity in your own suffering. At some point, giving more chances becomes refusing to accept reality. At some point, staying becomes a choice you're making, not something being done to you. The most painful realization is this: you cannot love someone into changing. You cannot sacrifice enough, forgive enough, stay patient enough to transform someone who doesn't want to do the work of transforming themselves. All you can do is lose time, lose dignity, lose pieces of yourself while they remain fundamentally the same. Here is the truth about people. They show you who they are through consistent behavior over time, especially behavior under stress, under temptation, when they think no one's watching. This behavior is not a rough draft. It's not a phase. It's information. It's data. It's truth. And when someone shows you they're willing to betray you, to lie to you, to prioritize their needs over your pain, once or especially multiple times, they are giving you a gift. The gift of clarity. The gift of knowing who they are. The gift of being able to make an informed decision about whether this is someone you want in your life. Most people reject this gift. They throw it away and demand another chance, and another, and another. Not because they're stupid, but because accepting the gift means accepting loss, and loss is terrifying. But staying with someone who repeatedly hurts you is not avoiding loss. It's just spreading that loss out over time. Death by 1,000 cuts instead of one clean break. And the cumulative damage of staying, the erosion of self-respect, the normalization of mistreatment, the years wasted. This damage is often worse than the acute pain of leaving. There is a concept in psychology called sunk cost fallacy. The more you've invested in something, the harder it is to walk away, even when walking away is the rational choice. You've already given 3 years, so you rationalize giving another, then another, then another. Before you know it, you've given a decade to someone who demonstrated in year 1 that they weren't worthy of it. But the time you've already lost is not a reason to lose more time. The pain you've already endured is not a reason to endure more pain. The past investment is gone regardless. The only question that matters is, moving forward from right now, is this person and this relationship worthy of your future? Based not on their words or your hopes, but on their demonstrated consistent behavior. If the answer is no, If the evidence is clear, if the pattern has repeated, then the most intelligent thing you can do is this. Believe them the first time. Certainly believe them the second time. And if somehow you're still there for a third time, understand that you're not dealing with isolated mistakes anymore. You're dealing with character. And character, unlike circumstances, rarely changes. The person who hurt you once showed you who they are capable of being when tested. The person who hurt you twice showed you who they consistently are. If you stay for the third time, you're not hoping they'll change. You're accepting that they won't, and choosing to suffer anyway. That's not love. That's surrender to fear. The intelligent response to repeated hurt is not repeated hope. It's permanent exit. Not because people can't change, but because they usually don't. And you deserve better than to be the experiment they conduct, to see if maybe this time they will. We have traveled through 7 laws, 7 truths that most people spend their lives avoiding. Let us return to them once more, not as separate principles, but as a single philosophy. When someone shows you they don't want you, honor that information and walk away. This is respect. Wait until you are ready before making permanent commitments. This is wisdom. Don't resurrect what has already died. This is acceptance. Don't fall in love with the same person, the same patterns, the same pain twice. This is growth. Choose solitude over company that makes you lonely. This is peace. Heal your wounds before you bleed on innocent people. This is responsibility. And understand that people show you who they are through their actions, and past behavior predicts future behavior. This is clarity. These laws are connected by a single thread. They all require you to face reality rather than hide from it. They all ask you to value yourself enough to make difficult choices. They all demand that you take responsibility for your life rather than waiting for circumstances or other people to change. This is the heart of it. Most suffering in relationships comes not from reality, but from the refusal to accept reality, from wanting things to be different than they are, from staying in situations that are clearly wrong because leaving feels hard, from giving chance after chance to people who have demonstrated they don't deserve chances, from choosing familiar pain over unfamiliar possibility. The person who lives by these laws does not have an easier life. They have a more honest one. They face difficult truths that others avoid. They make hard choices that others postpone. They walk away from people and situations that others cling to out of fear. But in exchange for this difficulty, they gain something rare. They gain peace. Not the peace of having everything they want, the peace of being aligned with reality, of not fighting against what is, of making choices from clarity rather than from fear. They gain self-respect, the kind that comes from honoring your own boundaries, from not abandoning yourself for someone else, from proving to yourself through your actions that you value yourself enough to make hard choices. They gain time, all the time that others waste in situations that were obviously wrong, trying to change people who don't want to change, hoping for different outcomes while repeating the same patterns. This time is reclaimed. It becomes available for building something real, and perhaps most valuably, they gain the capacity for real love. Not the desperate, grasping kind that fears being alone, not the kind that tolerates mistreatment, not the kind that confuses intensity with depth, but the kind that comes from 2 whole people choosing each other from a place of readiness, from a place of healed wounds, from a place of clear-eyed recognition of who the other person actually is. This is what waits on the other side of these laws. Not perfection, not eternal happiness, not the guarantee that you'll never be hurt, but the solid ground of self-respect, the clarity of honest choices, the peace of living in alignment with truth rather than in resistance to it. In the end, these laws teach you one thing. You cannot control other people. You cannot make them stay, change, love you properly, or stop hurting you. The only thing you can control is yourself. Your choices, your boundaries, your willingness to face truth, your commitment to your own well-being. And when you fully accept this, when you stop trying to change circumstances and start changing your response to circumstances, something shifts. You stop being a victim of your relationships. You start being the architect of your life. You become someone who knows when to stay and when to leave. Who understands the difference between investing and wasting time? Who can love deeply without losing themselves? Who can be alone without being lonely? Who can forgive without being foolish? You become, in short, someone who respects themselves enough to live by laws rather than being tossed by emotions. Someone who values truth over comfort. Someone who chooses wisdom over hope when hope contradicts evidence. This is not cold. This is not cynical. This is not giving up on love or connection or the beautiful possibility of human relationship. This is simply refusing to participate in your own destruction. This is choosing to build on solid ground rather than on fantasy. This is respecting yourself enough to demand that others respect you too. The laws are simple, but living them is the hardest thing you will ever do. Because living them requires you to face fear, the fear of being alone, the fear of starting over, the fear of accepting that something you wanted desperately isn't possible, the fear of seeing people clearly rather than through the filter of your hopes. But on the other side of that fear is freedom, the freedom of truth, the freedom of self-respect, the freedom of knowing that whatever happens in your relationships, you are honoring yourself. You are making choices from wisdom rather than from wound. You are building a life rather than just surviving one. These are the 7 laws, not rules to follow blindly, but truths to consider deeply, principles to return to when you're confused, when you're in pain, when you're being asked to accept less than you deserve. They will not make your life easier, but they will make it yours. And in the end, that is the only thing that truly matters.